Welcome to the Good Old Football Podcast, coming at you a day late. As I explained on Twitter, some problems here at the GOFP studios, but we're working through them. We are here now, and we appreciate you tuning in. A lot to get to today, a lot of hope in a lot of places, and other places trending down a bit. I'm kind of looking at Pittsburgh on that one, but we're going to start in Cleveland as we have for a while now, because Cleveland being good is good for the entire league. It reminds me a lot of that time when the Bengals kind of first came onto the scene in 2005, how much fun it was to have new blood, right? Because the Ravens and Steelers, the rivalry's kind of gotten stale, right? There's no Terrell Suggs anymore. There's no James Harrison. There aren't the guys who went out there and just killed people on a regular basis. Those games used to be, 10-7, 13-6, whatever. And I'm not saying it's not still fun, but that shootout we saw on Monday night between the Ravens and Browns, a lot more fun than watching Joe Flacco go 10 for 19 with 1 touchdown and 3 picks for 84 yards, right? The Browns being in the mix now adds so much more intrigue to the AFC North, like the Bengals did. I think people forget how hot that rivalry between the Bengals and Steelers was for a while. They were on the cover of Sports Illustrated. It said the nastiest rivalry in the NFL, the Cincinnati Bengals. At one point, yeah, it was 15 years ago, and things have changed. But at one point, they kind of were up there in that upper echelon of teams you think about when you think of bursting onto the scene. That's the Browns right now. And if I can tell you something, Cleveland, enjoy it, because it'll be here and gone, and you'll be 2-14 before you know it, and your fresh, new, hot quarterback is going to have his knee blown out. So enjoy the moment you're in. That Monday night game felt like the playoffs. That's probably the most playoff-like game I can remember watching for Cleveland. We'll talk about it, and we'll move on here. But when's the last time all of Twitter was talking about the Browns in a good way? In a way where it's like, hey, this is a real thing. They gave the Ravens were desperate, and they gave them all they wanted. And look, Baltimore is a team that's been hitting the ground running for years now. Cleveland's not there yet. And I think that's one, it's so easy to get out in front of yourself and think, they beat Tennessee. You have to learn these little things. That's why so often, teams that look smoking hot end up losing in the first round of the playoffs. If you haven't been on that stage, you don't know what to do on that stage. The Rams, the year before they went to the Super Bowl, got beat at home by the Falcons in the playoffs in Sean McVay's first year. That's just how it goes. That's why I still am not completely sold on when a team comes out, and I kind of said this with Buffalo. I'm starting to think I could be wrong, but maybe that's why Buffalo didn't move on in the playoffs last year and had that horrendous comeback and lost to Houston. Maybe last year they had to learn what the playoffs were like. That's what players say. I don't know. I've never played in the NFL, but everyone says you have to learn how to win at different stages, and I think the Browns are going through that. There's going to be growing pains, but growing pains is better than not growing at all. Ask Detroit. Ask Cincinnati. It's rough. Browns-Ravens was fun. There was that video that came out, Marcus Peters spitting on Jarvis Landry as he walked away. J.K. Dobbins was mocking the guy, I can't remember who it was, I think Andrew Sendejo. After he gave him a concussion the next day, he mocks it on Twitter and then deletes it. Baker Mayfield. When's the last time during a regular season game that a team didn't lose the division? Did you see a quarterback standing there stunned on the sidelines like we saw with Baker Mayfield? That's great. 3 teams being this good in one division is a lot of fun. So enjoy it while it's here. And look, the Browns shouldn't be too down either. It's not, Lamar's a unique guy. Stopping him is so much different than stopping anyone else. His legs are just different. That's just no one. Mike Vick is the only guy I'd even put in that category with him as far as being able to run, and I think Lamar might be better. And I'm talking NFL history. That's a lot of dudes. And the Browns, you're not going to see them wild card weekend. Don't worry about that. I don't know who you're going to see wild card weekend. Most likely probably Buffalo, Tennessee, maybe Pittsburgh, maybe Indianapolis. I probably should have looked at the standings before I recorded this, but I did not. Just got it all in the noggin. And here's the thing right now. You're not going to see Pittsburgh round 1. If I'm Cleveland, I'd rather play Pittsburgh than Baltimore. What I meant to say, you're not going to see Baltimore in round 1, and I'd rather see Pittsburgh. More on that in a second. Speaking of running, Daniel Jones can run too, more than people think. He might fall down, as we saw earlier in the year, but, you probably have to think of Daniel Jones as a top 6-7 guy with the legs, but he's no Lamar. I think the Browns They're not in my picks this week, but a 4-point favorite. I think them being fired up. I think if they really want to make a statement, they'll go in there and beat the Giants by 2 touchdowns on Sunday night, and that would just be massive. Just be massive. To go anywhere in primetime on the road and win by multiple scores. And look, the Giants have been hot. The NFC East, by the way, props to them. The division, between the Giants and Washington really picking it up. Good for them. Cowboys, you went to Cincinnati and did all right. Eagles, you got 1 win, but you had to change quarterbacks, and you're, not good over there. But as a whole, Washington, by the way, I told you Washington plus 1,800 to win the division. Don't sleep on them. Did you take that bet? Did you take that bet when they had the best quarterback and best head coach in the division, and they were plus 1,800 to win it? We'll see what the Browns can do against Daniel Jones. The Freddie Kitchens revenge game. Browns not usually win when Freddie Kitchens is on the field. Can they do it this week? It is wild to think that the man that was the head coach of this team last year is now the tight ends coach for the New York Giants. Right? Doesn't that kind of tell you something? And I don't want to live in the past, Cleveland. I'm sorry, but last year when it was like, oh, no one else wanted this guy to be their head coach, and now he's yours, should that maybe tell you something? I'm looking at you, Cincinnati. Did anyone else bring in Zach Taylor for an interview, the quarterback coach for the Rams? I feel bad for Zach Taylor. I'm not going to rip on him anymore. He kind of knows just how bad things are in Cincinnati. And again, it's so much tougher when you're a nice guy like he is. And I know that you can't let your feelings get in the way, but Marvin Lewis, and it never really got picked up in the national media because it's Cincinnati, Marvin Lewis could be very standoffish with the media. And I dealt with Marvin on several occasions. One-on-one, he could be nice, but you get him in those press conference rooms and someone asks a question he don't like. English class, I did okay in it. If you would ask him a question he didn't like, he would give you a stare down and he would just kind of give you a brief answer. Zach Taylor doesn't do that, so it makes it a little more difficult. Really getting off the rails there. Freddie Kitchens was not the guy. We'll get a lot of sideline shots of Freddie. Freddie was more of a, non-head coach. As I mentioned a little bit ago, the Browns would rather play the Browns would rather play the Steelers and the Ravens right now. I think you can make the argument, Pittsburgh. I think you can make the argument that Pittsburgh is the 3rd best team in this division right now. And here's what really concerns me about them. A lot of what I bet, when we get to the end of the show, which I've had 2 bad weeks, but when we get to the end of the show and I do the betting, so often I go with good to great teams who had a bad week, who had an embarrassing week. Because those good teams get fired up, they come out, and they run over someone. Pittsburgh, you can't run over Buffalo, but you should have looked better than that. When you get embarrassed by Washington at home. Washington beat the 11-0 Steelers. The Steelers should have been just infuriated by that. And that's not to take anything away from Washington. They've been playing very well. But they're not a better team than the Steelers. And they're certainly not a better team than the Steelers on the road. I really expected more out of Pittsburgh. That's why I stayed away from that game last week. I thought they're going to come out, they're going to show people we're still the kings of the North, or the kings of the AFC rather, and kind of hang with Buffalo. Once Buffalo kind of got over the jitters of the AFC powerhouse being in their building on Sunday Night Football, into the first half, they turned it on. They never turned it off. Buffalo really kicked Pittsburgh in the face and did not stop for about an hour and a half there. Not bouncing back to me is a bigger concern than just losing the game. Had Buffalo won on a last-second field goal, that's one thing. And Big Ben, a lot of people in Pittsburgh kind of starting to ask that question. And to me, I see something I saw with Peyton Manning, and we've seen a little bit with Tom Brady as they get older. They just don't have that zip on the ball anymore. Peyton Manning was bad. It's not going to go on his Hall of Fame resume, but Peyton Manning got benched for Brock Osweiler. People forget that, and it wasn't a mistake. Peyton needed his arm to rest for a while. He was throwing passes 12 yards over the middle that would just fall flat, and we saw some of that with Tom Brady. I don't know that that's why Tom Brady didn't go to a warm climate in a division where he's not going to have to play in the cold very much. I saw it 2 years ago with him in Cincinnati. The ball just lost its zip over the middle. And that happens. I think people who haven't been on an NFL sideline during a game don't realize how hard those guys throw the football. I got hit by an out route from A.J. McCarron once, left a bruise on my shin from 20 yards away, a football. These guys throw rockets. Ben Roethlisberger, left a few out there on Sunday night. So we'll see. The good thing is the question gets answered because the Steelers have to go to Cleveland in Week 17. And I know we're not there yet. And they've got some battles, but they've got a battle before then. Of course, they're in Cincinnati on Monday night, which, I looked it up. The biggest blowout this century. The Patriots beat the Titans 59-0. I think that should be on alert right now. You've got an angry Steelers team coming to a Cincinnati team that just lost by 23 at home to the Cowboys, who stink. You're on lookout. Ready to drink a gallon of bourbon on Monday night if you're a Cincinnati fan. But then the Steelers have the Colts and the Browns, two playoff teams, so we get a kind of chance to see how they'll bounce back from that. I think you should be concerned. I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. That said, you're still 11-2, still in very good position if you're Pittsburgh you're going to get a home playoff game. You're still in position. You win one of those, what else do you want? And they've been decimated. I feel like I can't leave that out. Just killed by injuries this year. But that's part of the game. So, you still got your guy. You still got Ben. You still got very good receivers, although dropping the ball kind of an issue too. But if you're Pittsburgh right now, I'm more concerned, like I said, about the inability to bounce back after that embarrassing game. Right now, I think you're clearly, at best, the third team in the AFC, at best. And I don't know that you're not the third best team in your own division. Ravens kind of seem to click finally on Monday night. Browns certainly look very good despite that loss. They've got some work to do on defense, no doubt about that. You give up 47 points at home, not great, Robert, but you gotta wonder. Gotta wonder. Can you imagine if Pittsburgh, loses in that first round after starting 11-0, they lose on Wild Card Weekend? Whew. They might take the city down. Speaking of points, the Cincinnati Bengals, we'll touch on just briefly here. I don't know what else to say about them. It's difficult to watch. You feel bad for the city of Cincinnati. I bring up Freddie Kitchens earlier. Remember, he was the butt of every joke there for a while. Zach Taylor's been worse. Freddie Kitchens won more game in 1 year than Zach Taylor's now won in 29 games. What are you going to do? And that's why I said earlier in the year, after Joe Burrow went down, if this franchise, not the city, it's not the city's fault, if the franchise doesn't figure out how to win with Joe Burrow, I think you're going to see a mass exodus of Bengals fans. There's not a fan base I know better, and they are just on edge with this franchise. This year will mark 30 years since they've won a playoff game. 30 seasons, I should say. That is absurd. And they've now scored 31 points in 14 quarters since Joe Burrow got hurt. 31 points. Both the Browns and Ravens scored more than that on Monday night. And those 31 points, 7 of them came thanks to a kickoff return for a touchdown. I don't know. They're not going to win another game this year. No doubt about that. I don't know that they would beat the New York Jets right now. I really don't think they would. All right, let's get into the picks. Again, I don't have any music. The other laptop went down. I'm in the process of moving. It's a huge pain. I apologize. I was 1-2 last week again. Not happy about that. I'm still 25-15, 10 games above 500 on the year for my 3 bad picks. Not bad, but it felt a lot better. So like 2 weeks ago, I would have been 23-11. That just sounds a lot better than 25-15. All right, let's get into it. Just play the music in the back of your head. We're going to start out with, once again, those Jacksonville Jaguars. It's tough to say. Craig Smiley gets mad because I say Jaguars like a hillbilly, and I'm trying my best here. Jacksonville plus 13.5 at those Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore coming off a big emotional win, and that's good. That's great. There's a letdown after some of those. I'm not saying they're going to lose, but I think this Baltimore probably wins by like a touchdown, 10 points. Jacksonville has been within 4 points in 5 of their last 7. That includes twice on the road. That includes that game at Green Bay. They took Minnesota to overtime. Jacksonville's close in more games than they're not. I mean, most of their games, like I just said, 5 of their last 7, they've lost by 4 points or less. Now, they've lost all of them. They lose every week. I don't think they've won since week 1, actually. But they're always right there, which is kind of incredible. Jacksonville plus 13.5 at Baltimore. The Miami Dolphins, I am going to swallow the 2.5 points as they host New England. This is just one of those ones I told myself, don't overthink it. The Dolphins are a better team than New England right now. They will win by a field goal at home. They typically have an edge, whatever it is. I don't know if Bill Belichick likes to go down there and get some boat drinks or what, but the New England Patriots always seem to slip up in Miami. I'll swallow the 2.5 points. Dolphins are a better team. They hung in there with Kansas City. I think Brian Flores is the type of guy who probably says to his guys, look, we're right there with the undisputed kings of the NFL right now. We should be able to beat anyone else. And if we have to face Kansas City again, we'll worry about it when we get there. Dolphins minus 2.5 against New England. They're just a better team. And finally, the aforementioned Washington football team. I will swallow these 6 points on this one. It's a weird word to use this often, isn't it? Seattle minus 6. I will get rid of, I don't know another word for that. Seattle minus 6 is what I'm taking. We'll just put it like that. Get rid of those 6 points. I think they'll win by 7 or more. Look, the Giants, I think a few weeks ago when they beat Seattle, kind of woke a sleeping giant a little bit ago. Pun intended, I guess. Seattle's really good. They won by, I know it was the Jets, but 40-3. I think a lot, and we see that a lot in the NFL, where a very good team kind of needs that kick in the rear end to wake them up and say, hey, this is still the league. You can't let this happen. I thought that's what happened with Tennessee when Cincinnati beat them a while back, but, we'll see. I get off topic a lot, don't I? It's very early for me. I've had not a rough week, just a busy week. So those are my picks. I like Jacksonville plus 13.5 at Baltimore, Dolphins minus 2.5 versus New England, and Seattle minus 6 at the Washington football team. And that's what I got for you. All right, let's close this thing down. I appreciate everyone tuning in. Again, sorry for being late. Just get a little busy in life. You know how things go. So we got Browns-Giants on Sunday night, and then we are looking at the Bengals-Steelers on Monday night. I am going to record this Monday night right after the Steelers-Bengals game, so make sure you tune in on Tuesday morning, and we'll have everything there for you. I'm at Matt Edwards on Twitter if you want to, be on the internet. And I am there, and this is a good old football podcast. I thank you for tuning in. Give it a rating as the season dwindles down. We will miss you, and see you next week.